Alright, so I never played or even seen an Uncharted game before. In fact, the first Uncharted thing I've ever seen was the movie, and I liked it. And after watching that movie, I knew I had to check out the series and get some trophies for it. But I couldn't decide on what Uncharted game I should start off with. So of course, the first Uncharted game I chose to play was the Legacy of Thieves collection, which is the last games of the Uncharted series, so yeah, that makes sense. And the only reason I decided to play this was that it was on PS Plus and Uncharted 4 has online trophies, and I don't like online trophies, so Legacy Collection it is. A Legacy Collection has both Uncharted 4 and The Lost Legacy in it, and I have to get all the trophies for both games in order to get the Platinum trophy, as there's only one Platinum shared between the games. And there are about 101 trophies I need to obtain, which is easily the most trophies I have to do to get a Platinum. So according to Power Picks, aka the treasure of trophy hunting, this collection will take about 30 to 40 hours to complete, as it would take about 20 to 30 hours for Uncharted 4 and about 10 to 20 hours for The Lost Legacy. The steps I chose to do were to beat the game on any difficulty while watching out for the sharpshooter trophy and while doing collectibles and story related trophies. Step 2 was to complete the game on crushing difficulty, which is the hardest difficulty in the game, and I could have done this for my first playthrough, but I wasn't confident in myself and wanted to enjoy the story. Step 3 was to do a speedrun of the game and get that trophy. Step 4 was to do cleanup and combat related trophies, and step 5 was to complete the Lost Legacy trophy list, which involved beating the game on crushing difficulty, doing collectibles, and basically doing similar tasks I did in Uncharted 4 in the Lost Legacy. So before I started this game, I was interested to see how the characters would be compared to the movies. Like I said, I've never played an Uncharted game before, so I'm kind of basing my opinions on this game through how I saw them in the movie. So if you haven't played Uncharted 4, the basic synopsis of this game is that our long lost brother, who we thought died, comes back, and we have to basically find the hidden treasure of Avery and basically get enough money to free him. And there's like this other group that's trying to get it named by Rafe, and that's basically it. It's actually kind of similar to how the movie kind of played it, with like they're trying to get the treasure against the same thing. But I guess I kind of see where the inspiration came from. So while I play the game, I have a list of chapter related trophies I have to do, with the first one being in chapter 4, and I had to hit all the targets in the attic with a toy gun.
Eat plastic.
Moving on to chapter 8, I had to get the ghost in the cemetery for getting through the Scotland cemetery without being seen or killing anyone. In chapter 9, I get the Trials and Tribulation trophy for solving the first trial in under 10 minutes.
So, if that was a test...
In chapter 10, I had to knock over all the rock cranes. In chapter 11, there are 4 chapter related trophies, with the first one unlocking after I let a lemur steal my apple.
Hey! He stole my apple!
The second one was to climb at the very top of the clock tower.
I can practically see my house from up here.
The third one was unlocked as I take a picture of Sully with the phone camera.
Cheese!
And the fourth one unlocks after I stand still for 30 seconds before the city chase section of the chapter begins. We then move on to chapter 12, which contains 2 story trophies, with the first one being Marco Polo for playing in the ocean near the sunken ship. And the second trophy for the chapter was achieved after getting 3 dolphins to follow the boat.
Three dolphins. You know what that means?
The next chapter related trophy occurs in both chapter 13 and 14, and I didn't get it in my initial run as I had to do this via chapter select, but you basically get this trophy in both chapters 13 and 14 without killing anyone, and this trophy unlocks in chapter 15. We then move on to chapter 17 to get the Just Floor It trophy for driving away in the Jeep without killing anyone. We then move on to chapter 22, and during the final fight with Rafe, we had to perfectly parry him without getting hit, and his trophy unlocked while Nathan and Sam were escaping the ship. And in the epilogue, we get our final chapter related trophy for beating the score in a Crash Bandicoot video game, which honestly was very hard for me because I didn't play it as a kid, and you basically had to be perfect in this, but I pushed through it and I get that trophy to pop. So during my first playthrough, I got some combat related trophies, and these trophies you'll probably get without even trying, and these include stealth takedown of 5 enemies, defeating 20 enemies with headshots, defeating 50 enemies with headshots, defeating 4 enemies with the same explosion. And with all that taken care of, I finished the game and unlocked 3 difficulty trophies to pop as I played on medium difficulty, as well as the sharpshooter trophy for having 70% accuracy while aiming. And yes, I did use lock on aim because I didn't want to risk it. I then used chapter select to get the collectible trophies, as I missed a few, as there were 4 collectibles to do, which were the treasures, journal entries, journal notes, and the strange relic. And we get some trophies for finding one of them and then finding all of them. After doing all chapter related trophies and collectibles, I move on to my crushing playthrough, which I complete by using cheats for infinite ammo and using better gun, cause I suck at this game, even though it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I then did the speedrun playthrough, which was the one I was most stressed about because speedrun trophies are scary cause if you fail you basically have to redo the entire game, while I followed PowerPixel's guide and completed it with an hour to spare. So during those 2 playthroughs I was able to unlock other combat trophies, and these include defeating 10 enemies in a row, switching from gunplay and hand-to-hand combat, using stealth to take down 30 enemies, performing 10 combo buddy takedowns, defeating 10 enemies in 60 seconds with the China Lake grenade launcher, defeating 1,000 enemies, defeating 50 enemies from the hip, and defeating 100 enemies in a row without dying. With only a few trophies left, I use encounter and chapter select to clean them up. But these trophies include me using every gun, defeating enemies with a pistol, rifle, and grenade, defeating enemies with a stealth attack, melee attack, headshot, and explosive, and I had to use the bullet speed cheat because I was struggling with this. I then used the bullet speed cheat to help with the trophy Butterfingers to make 10 enemies drop their grenades. I then defeat 5 armored enemies with melee attacks only. I performed 20 headshots from a rope, pulled 20 enemies when hanging over a ledge, and performed 30 vertical stealth takedowns.
I'll help you get to the day.
And that's all the trophies for Uncharted 4, except the Don't Ruin the Moment trophy, which we get by achieving all of the Lost Legacy trophies, so we gotta move on to that. As stated before, this trophy list is really similar to Uncharted 4, as it involves us defeating the game on crushing difficulty, and doing other similar combat related trophies. So Uncharted 4 has Chloe Fraser as a playable character, and I think she was the character in the early Uncharted games, and we are also joined by Nadine from Uncharted 4 as we go on our journey to find the Tusk of Ganesh, which is an ancient treasure based in Hindu mythology. So while I play this story, I focus on chapter related trophies like I did in Uncharted 4, and these include using all the zip lines in chapter 2. So in chapter 4 there are 5 chapter related trophies, and these include Let's Not Get Caught for driving over the edge at the start of the chapter, Your Prize for climbing the tower in the center of the map, Best Driver in the Business for driving from one end of the map to the other end in 3 minutes, which was kinda difficult, Quiet as a Mouse for reaching the door to the temple in the fort without being seen,
Hell of a racket. Okay.
and the final one for getting through the 3 trials in the Axe Fort without resetting any. In chapter 5 there are 2 trophies we had to complete, which were completing the shadow puzzle in 10 moves or less, and attempting to play Marco Polo in the water. In chapter 6 we had to fight an APC, and it was tough on crushing, so I had to do this trophy on Explorer after I was done. Still, the first we get is for planting multiple C4 charges on the APC and destroying it with 1 explosion. And the second is C4ia for defeating 4 enemies at once with 1 C4 blast.
Hey, that's it. We're clear.
In chapter 8 there are 3 trophies tied to this chapter, and the first one includes doing a cannonball into the water,
Cannonball!
finding an artifact, which is an Easter egg to The Last of Us Left Behind, and destroying the helicopter without killing anyone, which I also did in Explorer difficulty. In the final chapter, there are 3 trophies tied to this chapter, with the first one being combat racing for destroying 10 motorcycles, backseat driver for hijacking 6 vehicles, and the final chapter related trophy called Here, Catch, for destroying a vehicle with an explosion. After finishing the game, I get 2 more trophies, one for defeating crushing difficulty and one for finishing the game. Next we have to do the combat trophies and collectibles, in which there are 3 collectibles to do, and some of the combat trophies are really similar to the ones in Uncharted 4, so I'm not going to repeat myself. Instead I'm going to just show all the trophies while I talk, and then show the ones that are more unique for the Lost Legacy. So one of the unique trophies I had to do in the Lost Legacy was find the Holsa token in chapter 4, in which we get the trophy for collecting 1, and then another for collecting all and achieving the Queen's Ruby. In chapter 4 I also get the Jungle Gym trophy for performing 5 grapple swings in a row without hitting the ground, and another trophy for getting 30 seconds total airtime with the vehicle. After that, I cleaned up all the combat trophies, and I'm going to show the ones unique to this game as I showed the shared ones in the previous section. So the combat trophies unique to Lost Legacy started with defeating an enemy with the last bullet, breaking stealth and re-entering stealth, defeating 5 enemies in a row without being detected, defeating 20 enemies with C4, defeating 5 enemies with each one taking damage from a handgun, long gun, and melee for the sample trophy, defeating enemies with a vehicle, long gun, melee, and grenade in 20 seconds, stealth takedown 15 enemies in a row, and mark 30 enemies. The last trophy I need for the platinum is the Way of the Warrior trophy, which can be achieved for not killing anyone with a gun for the first 4 chapters. And if you put the difficulty on Explorer, this trophy was really easy, and I get it when chapter 5 begins. And with all that, we get the trophy for completing all the trophies in the Lost Legacy, and a platinum trophy for the collection. With that, I finally completed the Legacy of Thieves collection, and I have to say, compared to the movie, I think I liked the game story more. I think one main difference I noticed was the character Sully, as it kinda showed Sully really cares about Nathan in Uncharted 4, but in the movie, he kinda didn't seem all that caring to him, if you know what I'm seeing if you saw the movie. There were also some similar scenes I noticed, like the auction scene and the whole pirate treasure thing. But in my opinion, I thought the movie was decent compared to the game, but I guess I have to play the first 3 Uncharted to really understand the characters more. So that's all I got. If you guys like this, like and subscribe. I have other games I platinum in the end screen, so go watch those if you haven't, and that's all I got. See ya.
On guard, dickhead.
That's the spirit. You know how to sword fight?
Hit you with the sharp end, right?